Okay, good afternoon everybody. Welcome to Van Loon's Nursery. My name is Heidi and today we've got Glen from the Geelong Orchid Club here with us. Today's workshop about growing orchids is one of lots that we've got going on this season. We've had workshops on no-dig gardening, we've had workshops on lawns. Coming up in about a fortnight's time, on the weekend of September 24th and 25th, we've got workshops about having compost worms. We have a lot of people ask questions about compost worms, also about keeping chickens in your backyard, so there's a couple of different ones coming up. Later on we've got workshops about growing tomatoes, beekeeping, permaculture, how to wrap beautiful gifts for Christmas. Van Loon's has got something for everybody, so you'll find a little flyer here on the chairs and they're at the entrance. Grab one of those on your way out, pop it on the fridge and come along and see what else we've got in store for you this spring season. But this year I was just chatting to Glen out the back. We have had the best Cymbidium orchids we've had for donkey's years in the nursery. They've just been magnificent this year, so it'll be interesting to hear what Glen has to say why that's such a phenomenon this year. So I hope you all have got some lovely orchids at home this year as well. If not, after listening to Glen, I'm sure you will next year. So please make him very welcome. I hope you've all got lots of curly questions. Please feel free to put your hand up and ask questions, but thank you, Glen.
Thank you. Volume, is that correct? That's all right? I don't need to shout?
No.
They can hear me over this other side of the road if you want me to shout now. Yes, all right, the Geelong Orchid and Indoor Plant Club. So not only just an orchid club, but we have indoor plants as well. And a few people specialise in the orchids and a few people specialise in the indoor plants. So we have a bit of both. We just had a show in Skye, that's on the way to Hastings, the Orchid Spectacular, where I think there was 26 orchid clubs all compete in a big area. I don't know whether anybody's been there or not, but this is where they have the training for the dogs and such. They have a hall there which is absolutely ginormous. You can hardly see from one corner to the other, and all the commercial growers, they have all their stalls as well, and they sell hoodles and hoodles. It was beautiful this year, spectacular it was. And as I walk through the nursery here, and I frequent this quite a bit, Heidi has the best quality orchids this year that I've ever seen here. They're absolutely superb. The miniatures in the far side over there are beautiful. They really are. They're show bench quality. They're very good. So, these are not Cymbidiums, these are Dendrobiums, and I quite like these. These are tough. These are really tough. You could hang that in a tree and it would just survive and thrive. At my place it gets a bit better treatment, but it would survive. They're tough. A lady before had a photo of a speciosum, that's a big white flower, Sydney rock orchid. They're tough as well. This one got a second at that show the other week. That's quite a nice one. But we're amateurs and we're competing against professionals, and where I've got 3,000 orchids, the professionals have got 300,000 orchids to pick from. So we have a bit of a problem trying to compete against the professional growers that have nurseries that do it for a living, like here. You know, you do it for a living. So that is their life. With us, it's a hobby. So I'm not used to this thing. I've not had this before at all. We'll do an easy one first. Here we are. Nice and easy. So yes, it's a bit ratty. I haven't got my rubber mallet, but that'll do. And I'm very messy as well, so there'll be a bit of mess to clean up here. As you can see here, I cut old polystyrene boxes up, fruit boxes, not TV packaging boxes. Big difference. And that creates the drainage in the bottom and stops all that sludge and everything blocking all the holes up. These roots, they're like this stuff here. The Tillandsia Eumudioides, and that sucks the moisture out of the air and doesn't need anything else. I water it and I feed it, and because it grows twice as quick then, but it doesn't need that. I've got it hanging on the trees everywhere. I do nothing to it. It just grows. And a lot of the orchids do the same thing. They suck moisture and food out of the air. A lot of the cattleyas have got roots hanging out everywhere. A lady with a photo of Phalaenopsis, the roots grow out. They suck in moisture. When it rains, they suck the moisture in. And these do the same. So, the easy one is just potting up. So you tease all the roots out like you do a fruit tree. That really doesn't want anything doing to it apart from all the husks. Take all the husks off when you're repotting, because that's where the scale and the insect hide and the green fly and all the things that you don't want. So if you pull all the scales off, there's a bulb, and it's sucked all the goodness out and it doesn't want it anymore. There's another one. So the back bulbs, as we call them, there's another one. So the new leaders, which these are here, those will be the flowers for next year. They'll flower on those next year. And when they're finished with the old bulbs that have no leaves on, they just go dry and wither up, and you cut those off. They're sort of a reservoir for the orchid and the new growing leaves, so it doesn't go without nourishment. So if it wants more water, they suck it out of the back bulbs. They're just a reservoir there to hold a few nutrients and a bit of water to keep the new ones going. It's like mother and kids. The kids come first and the mothers come second. So we get most of the rubbish off, and that's quite nice. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 new leaves for next year. So, and the earlier you do it now, the more chance you have of it flowering again next year, if you know what I mean. It has time to grow its new roots, and now the weather's starting to warm up. The new roots should be starting. This hasn't quite started yet. You see the little green tips on the roots as they start going. It won't be long. Another month and they'll all start to go again now.
What if they're still flowering though?
Well, if you want to look at the flowers, then you would wait. But if you were very careful, you could chop it up with the flowers on, and it won't affect the flowers because it's decided to flower. Nothing you can do will stop it from flowering. That's what it's going to do. It's determined, and I have done that, especially when you're doing something whereby it's like this one here. If this had flowers on, it would have one on either side, and it looks a bit So what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to chop it straight down the middle, make 2 plants out of it, and then when it flowers next year, it'll look a lot better for appearances. So we put the polystyrene in, and it's a bit awkward up here, but never mind, we'll see if we can do this. I use the cocoa peat and the perlite for my potting. A lot of people still use the orchid bark. A lot of people use a lot of other different things, whatever sort of turns you on. I'm going to have to put this up here somewhere. Hope I don't block your view when it falls off. And this side of the orchid is a bit bare, and this other side of the orchid is where all the new growth's coming from. So what we'll do, we'll pat that against that side of the pot, So as all the new growth has room to spread on that side. This is a bit easier to handle than the bark. This is cocoa peat. It comes in blocks, and with it I add perlite, which perlite technical. It's inert, so it's neutral. It doesn't get worse. It doesn't get better. It stays exactly as it is. It's some sort of molten glass or something like that, and it creates good drainage, and it also holds moisture. So you get the best of both worlds with it. And the cocoa peat lasts quite a long time. It lasts longer than the orchid bark, but some people prefer the orchid bark than the cocoa peat. When I find the label that came out of there, here it is. One Tree Hill Solidus Gold. I date all mine when I repot them, when they flower and how many flowers. And if something hasn't flowered in the last 3 years, I get rid of it, because there's no room for it. If it's one that should flower and it hasn't flowered, then it goes. This is dated 4/12/8, and the 6 of the 12/14, and we'll put this down as first of the 9/16, and that will give me some sort of indication now. That should flower next year without a doubt, because it's big enough. Now, instead of potting up, a little bit more difficult is dividing up. And date on here, 29th of the 10th of the 6th, year 8 had 1 spike, 10th of the 9th of the 8th was repotted, the year 2010 it had 3 spikes, 2012 it had 2 spikes, repotted in 13, 15 it had 3 spikes, and this year it had none, so it's going to get chopped up and make it look a little bit presentable. There's a beautiful new lead there that I don't want to damage, and there's a new lead on the other side I don't want to damage. Yeah, and those roots could be better than that. They could indeed. So it'll be a lot better for a chop up. When in doubt. Oh, there's a nice new leaf coming on. Oh, nice new leaf coming on that side as well. No, there isn't. I broke it off. Bagger. There's another one inside there. That's all right. Another one coming up in the inside there, and another one on the outside there. So shake it up a bit, get rid of what you don't want, and most of the dead roots there are from the bulbs with no leaves on. So you could get rid of all those, because as they go rotten, it'll make the bark a bit rotten as well. We want new, like you prune something, you prune your roses for new growth. You prune these roots for new growth. But like your fruit trees and such, you prune it and it'll regrow. The root system has a certain size to feed what is on top. You cut half the top off, and the roots still say, well, what are we going to do with all this food? We'll have to make it grow, and the same thing happens here. That'll do.
Why don't you just take the back bulb off?
Because, as I said before, the back bulb is a reserve, the water tank. So this has got a new lead there, a new tiny lead inside there, and 2 green bulbs. I prefer 3 green bulbs. So it hasn't got 3, so we'll leave the back bulbs on. So that's still a reservoir to keep everything else going, because my main object is to get it to flower next year. It's no good splitting these up into little bits and pieces and waiting 5 years. You lose interest. I need everything flowering either each year or at least every second year. So that's why you'd leave a little bit of reserve on, so that it's got something to draw on, if you know what I mean. Does that explain it?
Yes. Yeah.
And it takes a bit of time chopping boxes up like this.
What about the kind of pot that it goes in, like a terracotta versus plastic? Is there any opinion on that?
We use plastic because they're the cheapest. Terracotta look pretty and probably work better because it would allow the roots to breathe, and they breathe through the roots. And while we're on that, the way to water an orchid is to absolutely saturate it with a bucket of water, so that it washes all the air out completely. Then as it dries out, it pulls all the new air in, which is fresh for the roots, and it feeds on the roots and keeps the roots healthy. And once again here, I've pushed that over to one side because it's going to grow this way. Is that the leaves hitting the... Sorry about that. You get some nice strong fingers and...
Do you let it sit in the bucket of water?
Pardon?
When you water it, as you said before, do you let it sit in the bucket of water for a while?
You could. That'd guarantee. Do you want to sit 3,000 in a bucket of water?
That's a big bucket.
Big bucket.
Full of swimming pool.
Big bucket. You have to do what you have to do for your own growing conditions. If you've got only a few orchids, by all means, put them in a bucket of water for 10 minutes, get rid of all the air, drag them out, and as they dry out, they suck the air in. Yes, for sure. And now, winter time, these are only getting watered once a week, and in winter time, that has just passed now, I cut the feeding down to half because they can't use it up, because they're not growing quite as good. Now, from now on, your slow release for the lazy people, forgive me, slow release, and I use that as well. On the top, as you water it, it gets fed. These get fed with liquid feed every week, all year round. And the last two and a half months, I reduced that to half, so that I'm not making the soil toxic sort of thing, because they can't use it. But now, from now on, as it gets warmer, they'll start using it, they'll start growing. When those new leaders there start popping up, they've got to be fed, and to feed them, they've got to grow roots, and that's the principle. So the slow release. Is there some here, Heidi?
Yeah.
A lot of people use slow release. As I said before, I've got 3,000 plants. I use a commercial food because I've got so many. And a lot of the commercial food is calcium nitrate with something else called high sol, which I don't understand what it is, but it's supposed to be good. And that's what I use. I also use slow release as well. So I use both. And a lot of people just use slow release. I see Heidi's put a few bits and pieces there. White oil. From now on, all the aphids, all the insects, everything will start, all the scale. They love the warm weather. They'll start to breed now. They'll all be hidden right down here where you can't see them for the winter time. But as soon as the warm weather comes, they'll say, hey, it's time. So now is the time to get on and kill all those insects off, as many as you can, before they breed up and get out of hand, because they can, and they do. This one, yes, we'll take some of those bulbs off there because there's too many, and if they come off easy, we'll take another one off. We'll leave that nice new leader, because hopefully he'll flower next year. We might take that one off as well. And when you take the bulbs off, a lot of the old roots come off, because the bulbs have lost their leaves, so they're then called back bulbs, and they don't need roots then, because they're just a storage tank, so all the roots die. So you can remove all those roots. It'll be better for the plant, because they'll only go rotten. I haven't got it here, but at home on my bench I do have a jar of bleach, and every knife and every tool after an orchid plant goes into bleach to sterilise it before I do the next one, to try and keep the diseases down and anything else that is not too good. That's ready for repotting. I'll leave it, and if anybody wants any back bulbs, I have too many. I don't want any more. You must realise, of course, that it'll be 5 years before you get a flower. So I had at the Geelong Orchid Club, I did a demonstration there, and I said to a lady, would you like some back bulbs? She said, oh, I'd love some. She said, when will it flower? She says, 5 years. She said, I'll be dead, you have it. So she gave it to the lady next to her and said, you have it, you'll live longer than me. That there, that there. We're getting into a mess here. Never mind. Now, this one, I really don't know about this. It's quite a nice one, but I've got the choice of doing two things: going up a pot size or chopping it up, and I think I'm going to chop it up.
Glen, how big can you get a plant, like a great big clump? Like to get 20 blooms out of one plant, how big does it need to be?
Yes, you can. To give you an example of another nursery, Pioneer, they won't go out the front there.
Yeah.
He's down to one, because he's selling up. He's getting out of it completely. And he's down. He wants $550 for that one out the front of his place.
It's a bargain.
What do you do with it? What do you do with it? And I don't know whether it's, I haven't examined, I don't know whether it is one plant or a multiple of plants all put together, I don't know. But what happens, unless you really perfectly look after the plant, it'll create back bulbs like that did. And when you get a lot of back bulbs, they don't look good. They look good with leaves on. This is the advantage of the calcium nitrate. It keeps the leaves on the back bulbs a lot longer than it does without using calcium nitrate. I don't understand all the ins and outs. I just get told I do it. It works for me, so I do it. I did use another fertilizer, Johnson's fertilizer, and I used that for many, many years and had great success with it. And then, of course, they brought out the rules and regulations for explosives and such, and he was using some of the things that you could make explosives out of, and he couldn't get them, and he changed his formula and it wasn't as good, so I changed. Yes, so whatever works for you. Oh, look at those roots. They're nice, they're good, they're very good. And look at the chunks I put in there. This works. I mean, it's simple, it's cheap, it works. It does work. And this is in the, this hasn't been done for a while. This is in orchid bark, see? Now usually in orchid bark, when you get a plant as old as this, and oh dear, this goes back a while, this does. 2003. 5 it had 3 spikes, 6 it had 3 spikes, 6 of the 11 for the 6 it was repotted. Year 7 it had 5 spikes, 12th of the 8th to the 7th it was repotted, 9 it had 3, 11 it had 4, so on and so forth. 15 it had 3 spikes. And this hasn't been repotted since the 3rd of the 9th of the 11th, so that's 5 years. And there's no muck in the bottom. That's due to this polystyrene. So it does work. It does. Who's cleaning up, Heidi?
Just put it on the floor, Glen.
Look, this is a bad one, and I brought this because it is a bad one. I'm going to lose a few bits and pieces here because it's just solid. I'm sure many of you will have orchids like this. I'm sure it's should have, well, 5 years. It should have been. I like to do mine every 2 years, 3 at the very most, and that's just, you know, it's got the shape of the pot here. It's squashed. What do? You take a look at it and give it a... There's one bit, and I wouldn't like to go any smaller than that. Really, that's not too bad. There's a fair chance that will flower next year. It's got a new growth there. It's got a little growth here. It's got a brand new one coming there. All we got to do, those little 3-prong scrapers that you do the weeding with, I have one of those, so it makes a hell of a mess of your nails. It does. I use one of those to scrape to scrape it all out, to save the nails. And once again we get rid of a few of those dead roots. There we are.
Do orchids like to be root bound?
Come on.
Do orchids like to be root bound?
They do. They do. The old-fashioned ones do. Yes. It's like a fruit tree. You restrict a fruit tree, or an orchard is when his fruit trees are not fruiting properly. He either turns the sprinkler off one side of the fruit tree to give the fruit tree a threatening that it's going to die. The alternative is you get a spade and you chop all the roots off one side. And the fruit tree says, I'm going to die. We have to reproduce. And that's how they think. And the same thing here. When you get an orchid that is absolutely chock-a-block in a pot, it's so restricted that it's thinking, maybe we're not going to last all this long. We've got to flower, reproduce, and get some young ones. And that's actually what happens. It is. These roots are very dry. Because it's been so congested like that, the feed and the nutrients aren't getting through as good as they should be. So if it did flower this year, it wouldn't have as many flowers on as if the fertiliser and everything got to all the pot. And once this now goes into a new pot and starts growing new roots, in fact, just pass it round. You can feel the roots. They feel to be dead. They're not dead, but they're in resting mode. But they're not juicy, and they should be juicy because it's been starved. It has. It hasn't had enough nutrients that it should have had, and it's taken its toll. Now the old-fashioned orchids with the spidery-like flowers, the loeanums and things like that from years gone by, they don't care. They'll flower every year without no messing about at all. They're the old-fashioned. They're the species that everything's being generated from, and they don't care. But once you get up to something like this that has the big flowers on, they want to be fed, they want to be looked after, they do. So there is a difference between orchids of the past and orchids that we have now, and they're hybridizing thousands a year to get better and better and better all the time. This one here, I'll put those down there. I brought this in for one particular reason only. You see here? Bloody rats. It's eaten 4 bulbs. It's chopped all the leaves off and eaten. There's another one around there. Eaten that, eaten that, eaten that. And not only that, on where I have a 2-story area, I have the arc fencing with the wire, and I have all my dendrobiums all on the top. Chopped 18 plants off at the top of the pot. Just ate the stalks off, everything, like these. Just cleaned them all off. I've got bait set and I've got trap set, and I can't catch him. He's gone. I went away for a few weeks holiday, and he moved in and I moved out. And this is a common fault with perhaps nurseries as well. When the nasty winter weather comes, the rats and mice move inside, and they like these. They love them, and so, as I say, he's eaten all this off. And I won't do this now because it's got flowers. Oh, these flowers here as well. You see the lips have gone funny. Something's pollinated it. And once it gets pollinated, once the pollen goes, that's it. Job's over. I've done what I was supposed to do. They've taken the pollen from here and put it on somewhere else, and the flower dies. So the people that have orchids for shows really don't want anything pollinating them. And I've got a bit of a problem because I've got beehives on my roof. But bees don't usually bother with these. It'll be something else, like a blowfly or anything else. The bees don't come into the greenhouse and bother at all. They go for the flowers in the garden. But as soon as the pollen's taken off the pollen cap here, flower dies. I mean, this has been out for 6 weeks now. But if any of these pollen caps get taken or pollinated, 2 days and they go like that. So it's a bit of a trap. And if you've got a couple of flowers missing, you can't put them into a show. Not that you'd be bothered, but we are, sort of thing. Now these are not cymbidiums, of course, these are dendrobiums, and as I said before, these are tough. These are really tough. You can grow in the trees up in Brisbane. They hang them on trees everywhere. As long as you don't get frost on them, they're fine. They'll grow, they'll flower, and when the sun comes out, they have quite a strong scent as well. They do. And that's a pretty one. And there's lots and lots of different kinds of these. These are becoming more popular. The Phalaenopsis, there's some beautiful Phalaenopsis I just see in the nursery here. They're great. And all right, bit of history. Yes.
It just might be an idea for somebody, probably people have done it before, but do you know how they get the roots on the dendrobium?
Oh, the kikis, yes.
I got them and I planted them on my tree fern trunk, and
Yep.
this year they're all flowering.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can see there's one there,
Yes,
and all you do is break it off and it grows. It grows so easy.
Just looks magnificent up the tree.
It won't be like this next year. You'll have to wait. It'll take a while. No, we mustn't think like that.
Could I just come? Quick question on your cymbidium.
Yes.
If you saw that and you said that's lovely, you bought it, and you just did the basic watering techniques, no nutrients. If you're predicting the flowers next year, how many flowers do you reckon that can have? Because I'm professing myself really, I don't do the nutrients.
I don't know. It's the synthesize of the leaves that produces the sugar that goes down into the bulb and stores up. Now let's pretend it's a water tank. It doesn't rain for 6 months. The water tank's half empty. It's got no food. Now if it rains a lot and the water tank's full, like the sugar going down into the bulb, it'll flower next year. So it all depends on the resources and the energy it can save during the year to make a flower. And like a daffodil that predicts itself to flower 12 months ahead, these do virtually the same. These plant 3 months ahead whether they're going to flower or not. And in December, January, February, you'll get the little spikes pushing up like this, but they don't flower till now. It takes all that time for it to grow, but they've decided to flower, and they decided to flower 3 months before you see anything. So it's not like growing something quick that goes up flowers and what have you. They're the long term. The Phalaenopsis, I mean, look at them. Look how long they last when you put them in the bathroom. I mean, you could have a Phalaenopsis flowering for 4 months, without a doubt. You won't get a bunch of flowers flowering for 4 months, will you? So they're good value. They are good, but they're long term, and you can't rush them.
Excuse me. When do you cut the flowers off? When they're all, the spikes just left. When do you cut them off? The flowers themselves.
Like I touched on before, if you want it to do really good and flower next year,
Yes.
you chop them off now. Because while the flowers are on there, it is feeding those flowers, whereby it could be could be growing the new leaves to flower next year. So the choice is yours. If you've got a few orchids, and you should have at least 20 orchids, because you won't get them to flower every year. And if you've got 20 and you get 10 to flower, you're not disappointed. If you've got one and it doesn't flower, you're disappointed. I can't hear, sorry.
I've been told mine are sitting on concrete.
Yes.
And they said you should have something under them to let the air under.
That's what I said before. As long as the air, as long as you've got the polystyrene in and the holes are on the side, then the air will get in there. You wouldn't. There is a few people that grow these hydroponically, whereby they're sucking water and they're fed all the time. Most of us, we don't do that, and we don't sit them in water, because the air can't get in the bottom of the pot. And as I said before, the best way to water an orchid is a bucket full of water, squash all the air out, and as it dries out, it sucks the air in, and it keeps healthy, and it feeds itself on air as well as slow release.
If you have it in a plastic pot, in a nice ceramic pot, is that really?
That's fine. And these things don't seem to mind. These things, you say there's a hole in the bottom, but some of the ones you buy now, especially that come from China, they're in a little ceramic pot with no drainage, no nothing. You've got to be careful you don't kill the roots. You know, if you water it, then lay it on its side. So and give it a squeeze so all the water comes out. The lady brought this. This is bone dry. This is. I can hear it crying out for water. It's asking me now for water. It is. It's bone dry. It's got healthy roots. Whose is this? Who's this? Who got this? Yeah. I'm trying to get it out of the pot without hurting it. The roots are very healthy, and one of the things with these Phalaenopsis, and this is growing good, you've got a new leaf growing there as well, so it's quite healthy. It just wants a drink.
There's 4 of them on the kitchen windowsill.
Thirsty. These roots are very healthy. It synthesizes through the roots. Some of these roots are green, so it's growing through the roots as well as absorbing moisture, like the leaves synthesize to the roots do their own synthesize on Phalaenopsis. That's one of the reasons they put them in plastic now, but most of us don't. We just put them in black pots, and then when the roots come out everywhere, it doesn't matter where they grow. There's moss everywhere, so the roots go out into the moss, but it doesn't matter. They're tough. They're really tough. As I was saying before, I moved from the dandelions in Upway, and I had a couple of acres up there and some big greenhouses and lots of things. I couldn't grow these at all. Upway is, we don't get frost, but it's damp and it's cold, and they just don't like damp and cold. I'm down at Port Arlington now. It's windy. It's windy down at Port, and they love fresh air. All of them, they love fresh air. All the orchids love fresh air, and it's a little bit warmer where I am. Plus, I have half a dozen on top of a tropical fish tank, so they get a bit of warmth from the fish tank. And then last year I went one step further, and I put ducted heating system through, so it doesn't get below 13 degrees now. But that's cheating, because I wanted things to do better. They did survive before that, and they do. The sheets there, it says 18 to 28. I would go down to 15 to 28, and I'm sure many people that grow these on the windowsill in the bathroom, I'm sure it goes down to 15 degrees at night time in your bathrooms and such, and they still survive. This is healthy. The leaves are a bit dusty. It's got a new leaf growing. This is fine. this is fine, and it's flowered like it has now. The lady asked me where I should cut it off. Would you like me to cut it off for you? And you don't cut them off down at the... You don't cut them off down at the stalk here, right at the bottom.
What happens if you do?
You wait longer for a flower. You save all that growing time, because it starts there and flowers, instead of having to start here and flower. Now, also, as a bit of a bonus, sometimes it'll grow kiki, like I gave you. So instead of growing a new flower shoot, it'll grow a new plant. Now, the people who do these in laboratories and such, they sell a little substance in a little jar like this, and you get a cotton bud and you dab these little nodes all the way up with one substance, and it'll grow a flower. You dab these nodes with another substance, and it'll grow a new kiki, not a flower. And they sell these in little files about this big. It only lasts 6 months, so you've got a lot of plants to do to make it worthwhile. But that's what they do now. They make it grow new flowers or new kikis, whichever they want. And one of mine at home grew a new shoot, and when it puts the roots down, where is it? Another one there. When these roots get about 50-60 mil long, you break it off and stick it in a pot, and you've got a new plant. But it's long term. Anybody want? Any questions? Oh.
Surgery, she said, but it was nearly dead. Well, I really tried it and did everything, and it looked real good, but now I notice it's gone, the leaves are going weak, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong, because the other one beside it, the leaves are looking good next to it.
Don't know. Different plant, different circumstances, different species. Not all the Cymbidiums are the same. Some are tough, some flower every year, some flower every 2 years, and I've got 1 or 2 that don't flower till they're 3 years old, because they have a big stalk and a big flower, and it takes a long time to build all those sugars and nutrients up to make it flower. So not all people are the same, not all plants are the same. I don't know. I think you asked me before, if you said it hasn't been repotted for 3 years. How long's been repotted?
I repotted it about probably 18 months ago, well, 2 years probably.
Yeah, 2 years would be absolute maximum, especially in sphagnum moss, because and the more you feed the Phalaenopsis in sphagnum moss, the more often you've got to repot it, because the food kills the sphagnum moss. That only likes water. So every 12 months you've got to replace the sphagnum moss. Sphagnum moss is fantastic to grow them in, because it absorbs moisture and they get what they want, and it's good. But if you feed them, as I do, you kill the sphagnum moss. So every 12 months you rip them out, put new sphagnum moss, put them back in, they're happy. And they're fed as well.
I was given a Phalaenopsis 3 years ago,
Yep.
which had flowers, and they finished, and it took 3 years for the next stem to come on,
Yeah.
and it was fantastic. And then as that was finishing flowering, that stem, I had this other come up that looked like it was going to be a spike, but it came up with it's sort of like a miniature green lily shape. And it's grown that high, that's it. And it's still on that stem. And I thought it might have been a malformed leaf, but it's not. It looks like a funny little green lily.
Look, I don't know. It could have been a flower spike, and found out it didn't have enough energy to complete itself and just aborted itself. Just
It's still
leave it. Leave it. See what happens.
Would it form a seed, do you think?
Seed?
Yeah.
No, definitely not.
Because the plant itself is quite large now.
Yep.
It's like 2 large plants.
Yep. How long has it been in the pot?
It's been in, well, 3 years, at least 3 years.
Borderline.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I should take it out.
Do you get fed every 3 years?
Yeah.
Yeah? And a bit more often. Anyone else?
The large ones, just Slovenians, do you follow the same rule as the small ones in terms of the length of stem that you're going to cut the flowers on?
Say that again.
The large ones, do you
Yeah.
follow the same rule as leaving a certain amount of stem as you do with the little ones?
No.
When you cut the flowers
No,
on?
no.
So those which are right in place?
No, different. Yeah, different. That stalk won't create any more shoots or flower. Now, with a sterilised knife, cut it off low down. Yep. Sometimes, as I said before, the new bulbs that the new leaders that are growing, and I'd want that to grow really rapid. That's hopefully the way it's going to flower next year. But quite often, some of the old leaves that have flowered, they will flower again if they're good and healthy, but not always. You prefer it to flower off the new growth. This is a little pot full of, these are called Pestrostylus. This is a native. I believe there's a lot of these growing at St Leonard's, growing wild. It's called a green hood. And there's lots and lots of different kinds of these, and these are different again. These are like a lot of the other bulbs. When it's flowered, everything dies off, it goes down and rests and spends the summer dry, and then when it gets rain in autumn time, it starts growing leaves again. There's that many different kinds of orchids. They were here before the dinosaurs. There's thousands of. It's the biggest genre of any plant that there is. Is the orchids. They've been around for years. We have three that's species to Australia, caniculatum, and I forgot the other two because I'm talking, but 3 only that are native to Australia. All the rest are from abroad and other places. Anyone else?
Yeah. Civilian orchids again, that location in your yard, like where we are in suburbia, there's often in summer very strong heat, or the back of the house has got shade. Do you move yours around much?
I can't. I've got too many.
Even 1 or 2?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I have a naughty corner. You haven't flowered. They go onto the top of my flat roof out for the winter, so they get all the cold and the wet and the wind and everything. Plants that are big enough to flower that haven't flowered, I put on the flat roof outside to make a bit more room inside, of course, as well. And then another couple of weeks from now, I'll have to clean them up and bring them back inside, because they'll burn with the sun. They'll burn with the cold, but I don't get frost where I am. And they're sheltered from the south by a wall, and they're sheltered from the west. So they get the north and the east, which is not bad in the winter time. That's fine. And they're all growing new leaves about this big, so they're all growing quite well, but they didn't flower. As I said before, they don't flower every year. Not all of them. They don't. Some do, some don't. So sometimes you've got to grow 12 months without a flower. So if they don't flower, I don't want to look at them. I put them out on the flat roof with the bees.
So would it be ideal then, in terms of If you can get morning to
Perfect.
middle of the
Yeah,
day,
you're perfect.
sunlight,
Yeah, perfect.
and not afternoon heat.
You don't want to burn them, and you don't want the leaves too green. The leaves on that are a bit green. This is more of a perfect leaf. A little bit yellowish. That's at the optimum light. That's at a bit too much shade. If you give them too much shade, they won't flower. They need the sun to ripen the bulbs, to put the sugar as a reserve. So your summertime under a deciduous tree, as they say, wintertime on the east side of your house getting morning sun and getting as much sun as you can in the wintertime. And come December, January, February, they need a little bit of sun on the bulbs to inspire them to form a spike and flower. Enough, but not to burn them.
So, are you saying that you should repot your orchids every 3 years?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Split them and repot them?
Depends. If they grow vigorously, then yes, they're too big for the pot. As you saw that one before, that was far too big for the pot. And if you, even this one here, far too big, and that's a bit of burning. That's from the cold. So the cold has burnt that, and the sun will do exactly the same. It will. Look at that thing. It's horrible. It's got a couple of flowers. The plant is horrible. It's got 4 bulbs that's been eaten off by the rats. It's got back bulbs. Oh, that's hard. That's hard. That's hard. It wants a lot of work doing to it. It does indeed. But it's got the optimum light. It's got a couple of nice spikes on. That would have been better with 4 spikes on. I see some of the plants in the nursery here. They're that size. They got 4 spikes on.
For the health of the plant, you don't cut those flowers off now.
Yes, for the speed of the plant. If you really wanted to make it look spectacular next year, you chop the flowers off, divide it up, clean it up, and that maybe would flower next year, maybe not. It's got a lot of work to do with that plant to make it look decent. The plants that the nurseries sell are nice looking plants with 2, 3, 4 spikes on. They're being grown, they're being fed, they're being looked after. I got 3,000. I got to go fishing. So some of them have got to take, second place sometimes.
The slow release fertiliser, do you mix that when you're repotting, or do you, how?
You can do both. You can do both. You can mix it in with your potting, and then of course you can spread it on the top. You push a pencil down the side of the pot and just tip a bit in, because all the new roots go to the outside of the pot all the time. So you got new, and when you put the stakes in, they used to say put the stake in down the side of the pot. Don't do that. Put the stake away from the side of the pot, because all the new roots are down the side of the pot, and you'll chop them all off.
When should you do that? When should you? I've always tried to put the stakes in. I've got them about that big.
No, you put the stake in when the spike gets that big. Yes.
Just the size.
You get a big hammer and you knock it in, and that's it. Yeah. And then some of the spikes go up nice and straight. Some of the other ones go. Then you've got to get elastic band and a peg, a bit of wire, and you've got to gradually pull them back, and then they break up and say bugger. 12 months growing, all wasted. It happens. Believe me, it happens. It does. Then the other stuff here is the Spanish moss. And that's good, and you can dress all your plants up with that. I sprayed a bit of water on this before I came, and if it's all right with hiding, they can take it away because I've got a lot. I got rid of my possums. He used to pinch all this. Every week. I mean, we're talking bucket loads. So I put wire everywhere, and once I got him outside, I've prevented him from getting back inside again now. So it grows in profusion now. But the possums take a lot, because not only do they have one nest, they have half a dozen nests, and they spread it around everywhere. Well, I warned him a couple of times, and then I eventually blocked it all off, and he didn't come back. Anything else you'd like to know at all?
Sometimes the leaves ran off on the very edge.
Yes, lack of water. Yes, lack of water.
So what do you do with those leaves?
Cut them off.
Cut them off? Okay, thank you.
Cut them off in a V.
Yeah.
The lack of water is usually the cause for the tips going brown. They go brown? Yeah,
Yes.
it is. Yeah,
Just
it
on
is.
the very edge.
Just on the end. Yeah, indeed. And apart from cymbidiums, dendrobiums, and a few more, I went to the Nambour Garden Show this year up in Queensland and bought lots and lots and lots of things that I'd never heard the name of before in the Oncidium genera. And so even though I've got 3,000 orchids, I've got 3,022 now, because I've got another 22 up there. You can't help, it's a disease. I started off with 6. My wife, we were living up in Baronia, and my wife said, "Oh, you want to go down to the supermarket? There's a chap down there, he's got a stall down the middle with some plants." And I had a couple of dollars in my pocket, and I went there, I bought 6. I finished it with 4,500. It's a disease. It's a good disease, keeps you out of the pub. Anything else? So as it looks like it's natural. This is what you do when you put them on a show bench for the judges. They know that you're still trying to fool them. Thank you.
Wow.
I hope that's been interesting.
Thank you very much. Now, you did hear what Glen said. Everybody needs to go home with, what was it, 20 orchids? So I think there's about 50 here. We should have just enough for everybody. Grab a trolley and fill up on your way out. Now, I'm sure that the Geelong Orchid and Indoor Plant Society is always after new members, so if you're interested in joining and learning more, catch up with Glen after the
We are. As I say, we have orchids, and it's an indoor plant, and it's a bit of a social activity as well. They're not all as stupid as me, but half of them are.
You might catch the addiction disease, so just be aware. So once again, thank you very much, Glen.